You're seriously seating me outside? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady, but feeling the sting burning behind my eyes. My name is Hayley, and I'm the CEO of a billion-dollar tech company. But tonight, my own family had just banished me to the patio like some embarrassing afterthought. Jason, my older brother and Dad's mini-me, smiled coldly, sipping champagne without a shred of guilt. Come on, Hayley, this table's for the real guests, people who matter. I stared at him, heat rising sharply in my chest. I'd spent years quietly enduring their dismissals, but something about tonight felt different. Maybe it was because I'd just come from a meeting, finalizing a massive billion-dollar acquisition deal. Or maybe it was the realization that nothing, not success, not achievement, would ever make me good enough for them. My dad, Robert, was celebrating his 60th birthday inside the elite Hamilton Club. Mom, ever the gracious hostess, was laughing lightly at something Dad said, perfectly positioned in her designer gown. Jason stood confidently beside Dad, glowing with the approval I'd chased my whole life. The three of them looked like the perfect portrait of a successful family, and I wasn't even allowed in the frame. Jason leaned closer, whispering smugly, "Just stay out here, Hayley, don't embarrass yourself again, let Dad enjoy his night." His casual cruelty felt like a punch to the gut, hitting deeper than ever before. I clenched my jaw, choking down the bitter response rising in my throat. This was supposed to be a family dinner. I'd foolishly thought tonight might finally change things, that they'd finally see me, respect me, maybe even feel proud. Instead, I was hidden away, discarded outside like I was invisible. My hands shook as I sat down at the patio table, humiliation burning my cheeks. Around me the world carried on, guests inside laughing, servers passing trays of champagne, unaware of how deeply I was hurting. I'd spent years quietly building my tech empire, secretly hoping that if I achieved enough, it would finally earn their respect. But here I was, once again facing the painful truth. In their eyes, I'd always be less. My phone buzzed suddenly, urgent and insistent. A text flashed onto the screen, jolting me out of my misery. Emergency, competitor making a counteroffer tonight. Meeting needed ASAP. Helicopter on standby, can you confirm? Adrenaline surged through me. I stared at the phone, heart pounding wildly. Here was the biggest business opportunity of my life, and I was stuck at the table of shame. But suddenly, another thought hit me sharply, taking my breath away. This could be my moment, Lee, the chance to finally stand up to them, to show them exactly what I'd built, exactly who I'd become. They wanted to keep me hidden away? Fine. But tonight, they'd finally learn who Hayley truly was. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever overcome something for your family. Trust me, you have no idea what they'll do once they find out the truth. Sitting out there on that patio, I couldn't stop thinking about how invisible I'd always been in this family. They say memories fade with time, but I can still feel every dismissive look, every painful silence clearly, etched into me like scars. I remember clearly the night of my high school graduation. Jason had just finished his first year at Harvard, so naturally, my graduation became a celebration of him returning home. Mom had invited half the neighborhood to our house, complete with caterers and a jazz band like it was some gala event. But when it was time to toast my achievements, Dad raised his glass and casually said, "To Hayley, finally finished with high school. Maybe she'll settle into something practical soon." The laughter around me felt deafening, drowning out my quiet pride. College wasn't better. Jason thrived at Harvard, interning at Dad's prestigious firm and attending exclusive dinners. Meanwhile, at MIT, I doubled up on computer science and business classes, sleeping 4 hours a night just to keep pace. When I secured my first internship with a major tech startup, Dad barely glanced up from his newspaper. "Tech companies come and go, Hayley. Don't get too comfortable." Jason would always smirk, feeding off Dad's disinterest. "Yeah, Hayley, maybe someday you can run the IT department at the bank. Keep our emails working." I'd smile tightly, choking down my bitterness, my chest tight with humiliation. They saw my ambition as silly, a child's hobby rather than a genuine pursuit. It hurt more deeply than I ever let on. Even my first major success, the launch of my app that got featured in Forbes, was overshadowed. I remember rushing home that Thanksgiving, clutching the magazine, heart pounding with excitement. But before I could say anything, Mom greeted me with news. Jason got promoted. He's officially the youngest vice president at the bank. The magazine suddenly felt heavy in my hands, insignificant. Later, after dinner, I quietly showed Dad the article, hoping desperately for just a spark of pride. Instead, he barely skimmed it, sighed and said, "Apps are trendy, Hayley. Real careers last." Jason smirked from across the room, raising his glass mockingly. "Cheers to trendy Hayley." I smiled weakly, fighting tears. It was easier to retreat into silence, to hide my accomplishments like they were something shameful. Those early years of building my company felt lonely. My tiny apartment doubled as an office, where my best friend Maddie and I spent countless nights coding and strategizing, surviving on cheap takeout and sheer determination. I never told my family about the sacrifices, the missed birthdays, weddings, weekends, friendships strained by my endless work schedule. I wanted desperately for them to see me succeed, but deep down, I knew they'd never acknowledge my struggle, let alone my success. Even as my company grew, I kept it quiet. We landed a major client, and I remember sitting at a boardroom table feeling an overwhelming sense of pride, only to tuck that feeling away again when Jason joked over dinner, "Still playing CEO, Hayley? Must be fun." Sometimes I wondered why I even bothered attending family events at all. But hope was stubborn. It clung on, whispering maybe this time will be different, even when I knew better. Yet tonight, alone at this patio table, something in me finally snapped. All those years of invisibility, every quiet humiliation I'd endured now felt sharper, clearer. I'd built a billion-dollar empire from nothing, and they still couldn't or wouldn't see me. I knew in my gut that no matter how much I accomplished, to them I'd always just be Hayley, the disappointment. My phone buzzed again, pulling me back sharply into the present. "Decision urgent, helicopter ready. Confirm immediately?" My hands trembled slightly as I typed back a single word, "Yes." Tonight, for the first time, I wouldn't stay hidden. I'd stop chasing the validation of people who'd never give it and claim my own success openly, fearlessly. They thought the patio was the right place for me, hidden away. But soon, they'd discover exactly how wrong they'd been. Confirming that text was like flipping a switch. I suddenly felt awake, alive, driven by something I'd buried for too long: self-respect. Tonight wasn't just about a billion-dollar business deal. It was about finally owning my success openly. I'd spent years quietly building my company, Nexitech, hiding its scale and success behind vague responses at family dinners. Each milestone, a new office, a major client, recognition in industry magazines, was met with minimal acknowledgement at home, so eventually I'd stopped mentioning them altogether. It seemed easier to live two separate lives than constantly face their dismissive reactions. But now everything was changing. This deal tonight was different. It could catapult Nexitech into a new league, and me along with it. Our competitor, a massive global firm, was aggressively pursuing the same acquisition, forcing us into an urgent bidding war. If we lost, Nexitech's growth would stall. If we won, we'd secure our position as an industry leader. This wasn't just business, it was my life's work on the line. I'd arrived at Dad's dinner knowing I might have to leave early, but secretly hoping I wouldn't need to. I'd foolishly thought tonight might finally offer a chance to connect with my family, to share this critical turning point, and perhaps earn their respect. Instead, here I sat, banished to the patio. If there had been any lingering doubt about how they truly saw me, it was painfully clear now. I glanced at my watch, heart racing. 20 minutes until the helicopter would arrive. It felt surreal. I'd never intended to make a dramatic exit, but there was no turning back now. Part of me was terrified, knowing it would forever change my relationship with my family, but another part of me, a stronger part, felt exhilarated. They'd never respected my quiet accomplishments. Maybe they'd finally notice when success literally landed at their doorstep. Inside, through the glass doors, I saw Dad standing at the head of the table, raising his glass, smiling broadly. Jason was beside him, confidently working the crowd, effortlessly charming Dad's friends and colleagues. Mom smiled, poised and elegant, her laughter ringing gently. Their world seemed perfect, exclusive, orderly, secure. It was a world I'd never quite belonged to, and tonight they'd made that brutally clear. The humiliation stung freshly, sharpening my resolve. This billion-dollar deal wasn't just business, it was my lifeline, proof that I was more than their invisible daughter relegated to the patio table. My team's texts kept rolling in, urgent, rapid-fire updates, terms changing, negotiations escalating. Each message only deepened my resolve. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Maddie, my COO and closest friend. Helicopter landing cleared, everyone watching. Are you sure about this? I hesitated just a second, heart pounding, before typing back, absolutely. The truth was, I was more than sure. I was ready. Ready to stop hiding, to stop apologizing silently for choosing my own path, for being successful in ways my family refused to understand. A waiter came over quietly, glancing sympathetically at my barely touched dinner plate. Is everything all right, ma'am? I nodded, smiling faintly. It will be soon. As he walked away, a commotion rose inside the dining room. Heads turned toward the window, guests murmuring curiously, pointing upwards. I glanced up, knowing exactly what they saw. My helicopter, descending steadily, lights blinking, drawing everyone's attention. My heart hammered in my chest, breath coming quick and shallow. This was it. The moment there'd be no turning back from. Through the window, I locked eyes briefly with Jason. Confusion crossed his face, quickly replaced by annoyance, then disbelief. Dad's colleagues murmured excitedly, and even Mom's poised mask slipped for a moment, her eyes widening slightly. Standing slowly, I smoothed my dress, took a steadying breath, and walked confidently toward the patio's edge, phone buzzing incessantly in my hand. With each step I felt lighter, stronger. Tonight wasn't just about securing a billion-dollar deal, it was about finally claiming my own worth openly, unmistakably without apology. Tonight they'd finally see who Hayley truly was, whether they were ready or not. As the helicopter blades thundered overhead, sending gusts of wind swirling around the patio, my heart pounded wildly. This moment felt strangely unreal, almost dreamlike, like watching a scene unfold rather than living it myself. Through the restaurant's windows, my family stood frozen in shock. Jason's champagne flute paused mid-sip, Dad's mouth slightly open, Mom's eyes wide with disbelief. Their carefully constructed evening, their exclusive gathering, now utterly disrupted by my dramatic exit. It wasn't the confrontation I'd planned, but now, faced with it, a fierce satisfaction surged through me. Guests inside were rushing to windows, pointing excitedly. Several pulled out phones, recording as the helicopter touched down gracefully in the clearing near the patio. A few minutes earlier, I'd felt invisible. Now every eye was locked firmly on me. And strangely, despite the chaos and the pressure of the looming business deal, I felt calm. Hayley, Jason stormed onto the patio, furious and incredulous. What the hell are you doing? I turned to face him, keeping my voice steady, coldly clear. Going to a meeting, Jason? You know, work, something you keep insisting I don't really do. His face flushed angrily, disbelief twisting into disdain. You're making a fool of the family again. Can't you just behave normally for once? My anger flared sharply, years of bottled resentment boiling to the surface. Normal? Like ignoring every accomplishment I've ever had? Normal, like seating your own sister outside at Dad's party like an embarrassment? Dad and Mom stepped out onto the patio, interrupting sharply. Dad's face was tight, clearly embarrassed. Hayley, this is unacceptable. Stop this spectacle immediately. I met his gaze steadily, feeling stronger than I ever had before. The spectacle is you hiding me away because you're ashamed of my success. Did it ever occur to you that I've built something you should be proud of? Dad shook his head dismissively. You call this success? Disrupting my celebration with your childish stunt? My phone vibrated urgently, reminding me that time was running out. But I stood my ground, refusing to shrink back again. Childish stunt? Dad, my company is finalizing $1 billion deal tonight, a deal that will change the industry. But you'd never know that because you've never bothered to ask. For a brief moment, stunned silence fell over the patio. Mom looked away awkwardly, clearly uncomfortable. Jason's expression hardened bitterly. Dad simply stared, bewildered, anger turning slowly into confusion. You're exaggerating, Jason sneered. $1 billion? Please. I ignored his mockery, turning calmly toward the helicopter where Maddie stood at the open door, waving urgently. Believe what you want. I've spent years letting you all decide how much I'm worth. Tonight, I'm done with that. I turned away, walking briskly toward the helicopter. Jason's voice, sharp with anger, echoed after me. Hayley, if you leave right now, don't expect a welcome back. Pausing briefly, I glanced back over my shoulder, feeling a sudden, deep resolve. Jason, you all stopped welcoming me a long time ago. This is just the first time I've stopped pretending I didn't notice. Stepping into the helicopter, the door slid shut firmly behind me. As we lifted off, the ground dropped away, revealing the restaurant below, faces pressed to the windows, my family shrinking into indistinct figures, small, distant, irrelevant. Inside the helicopter, Maddie grinned nervously. You okay? I exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than I had in years, better than okay. Below, the city lights blurred gently into a reassuring glow. Ahead of us, the biggest business moment of my life awaited. Yet strangely, that no longer felt like the only important victory tonight. The real triumph had already happened. The moment I finally stopped hiding who I was to please a family who never bothered to know me. As we soared away, the tension in my chest loosened fully. Tonight, I'd left more than just a dinner. I'd left behind a lifetime of quiet humiliation and stepped firmly into my truth. The buzzing phone reminded me there was still work to be done. But as I prepared myself mentally for the negotiation ahead, I felt ready, powerful, unstoppable. Because tonight, for the first time, Hayley finally belonged fully to herself. We touched down on the rooftop helipad at our downtown headquarters 20 minutes later. Maddie jumped out first, already on her phone, coordinating with our team. The urgency of the billion-dollar deal suddenly hit me again full force. The drama at my father's birthday had felt cathartic, but now I needed to refocus. Still, adrenaline pulsed through me from the confrontation. My family's shocked expressions stayed fresh in my mind, blending satisfaction with anger. I'd been dismissed by them for so long that finally standing up felt empowering, yet painful. In the boardroom, everyone was already waiting. Screens flashed numbers, documents covered the tables, and faces turned to me with expectant intensity. Thomas, my CFO, approached quickly, tense but determined. TechCore's counteroffer is aggressive, he said immediately. They're throwing around cash we didn't anticipate. I nodded, taking a deep breath. How much? $1.5 billion all cash, Thomas replied grimly. No contingencies. The number hit hard. That was beyond our original strategy. We had planned carefully, but now the stakes were raised dramatically. TechCore clearly wanted this deal as badly as we did. Maddie spoke up decisively. We can't let TechCore win this. If they acquire AI Dynamics, they'll dominate the market and push us back by years. Everyone nodded gravely. This wasn't just about the money, it was strategic survival. AI Dynamics technology was critical to our future plans. Without it, Nexatech would stagnate, stuck chasing competitors rather than leading. I steadied myself, ignoring the emotional exhaustion from earlier. Then we match. But we sweeten our offer with integration promises and key executive positions. We show AI Dynamics we're the best strategic partner, not just the highest bidder. Thomas nodded cautiously. That could work, but it stretches us thin financially. Then we stretch, I said firmly. We didn't come this far just to lose at the finish line. Let's finalize it. We spent the next hour hammering out details. Lawyers revised documents feverishly. Thomas recalculated figures repeatedly. Finally, our updated proposal was ready, matching TechCore's price, adding equity incentives, and strategic leadership roles to ensure AI Dynamics' vision stayed intact. At midnight, we dialed into a call with AI Dynamics CEO Richard Everett. He was known for sharp negotiating, hard to impress. As he appeared on screen, I felt a surge of nerves, but determination steadied me. This was the defining moment I'd worked toward for years. Hayley, Richard greeted calmly. It seems you made quite an entrance earlier. I've been hearing rumors. I smiled wryly, fighting embarrassment. Not my usual style, but sometimes drastic measures are necessary. He chuckled lightly, appreciating the honesty. TechCore is offering straight cash, very tempting. Why should we choose you? I took a deep breath, feeling everyone's eyes on me, trusting me to deliver. Because we're not just buying technology, we're aligning visions. Your team won't be dissolved or sidelined. You'll become integral leaders shaping the industry's future. TechCore sees you as an asset. We see you as a partner. Richard studied me thoughtfully, silent for a long moment. Your offer is strong, but this is business. How can you guarantee what you're promising? I leaned forward earnestly, because this isn't just business for me. This is personal. I've spent years overlooked, underestimated, building Nexatech from scratch. I know what it's like to fight for recognition. Your team deserves better than becoming a cog in TechCore's machine. Together, we'll do something meaningful, something powerful. This isn't just a purchase, it's a partnership. Another long pause. I held my breath, heart pounding fiercely. Finally, Richard smiled faintly, decisively. All right, Hayley, you've convinced me. We have a deal. The room erupted in cheers, relief washing through me in waves. I sat back, exhausted but exhilarated. We'd done it. Nexatech had officially secured its future, and I'd secured mine. As the team celebrated around me, my thoughts drifted briefly to my family. Had they even realized the magnitude of what I'd just achieved? Probably not. But for the first time, their ignorance didn't matter. My validation no longer depended on their approval. It came from what I'd accomplished tonight, the respect from my team and the certainty that I'd stood firm for what mattered. The pain of years spent chasing recognition began dissolving into satisfaction. Tonight, Hayley didn't need their applause. She'd earned her own. The morning after the deal, I woke to dozens of missed calls and texts from Mom, Jason, and even Dad. I scrolled through them slowly, each message becoming increasingly agitated and demanding explanations. Predictably, Jason's texts were bitterly sarcastic, accusing me of humiliating the family. Dad's were terse, cold, and clearly angry. Mom's messages felt the saddest, gently begging me to come back and apologize, to fix things. I sighed, feeling a deep exhaustion settle over me. Despite the incredible success we'd achieved, my family still managed to cast a shadow over everything. I hadn't expected congratulations, but deep down, I'd still hoped for a shred of understanding. Just as I was contemplating ignoring them all, my phone rang again. Mom's name flashed persistently across the screen. Something in me finally broke. I picked it up reluctantly, bracing myself. Hayley. Mom's voice was quiet, tense. Your father's furious, Jason's hurt, you need to come home and fix this. I felt irritation flare instantly. Mom, I didn't break anything. You all made it clear exactly where I stood. She hesitated, voice trembling slightly. You made a scene, Hayley? A helicopter? During your father's birthday? It was embarrassing. A bitter laugh escaped me. Embarrassing? Mom, Dad literally seated me outside, away from everyone, like I was some shameful secret. That wasn't embarrassing? Her voice dropped lower, urgent. Hayley, listen. Your father said you're officially done with this family if you don't apologize publicly. My chest tightened sharply, shock and pain twisting together. Done? Mom, I built something amazing. Dad should be proud. He should want me to succeed. She sighed, frustration edging her voice. Your father's pride doesn't include billion-dollar companies that embarrass him publicly. He wants you gone, Hayley. Officially disowned, unless you publicly apologize for last night. Her words landed like a punch, knocking the air from my lungs. Officially disowned. I sat silently, processing this unbelievable ultimatum. All I'd ever wanted was their recognition. Instead, they doubled down on rejection. Mom's voice softened slightly. Hayley, please, just come back, apologize, and we can put this behind us. Anger surged sharply, eclipsing the pain. Apologize? For what? Being successful? Standing up for myself? Mom, I spent years waiting quietly, hoping you'd notice what I'd built. You all chose to dismiss me. You pushed me away, not the other way around. Hayley. Mom tried again, desperation creeping into her voice. No, I interrupted firmly. I'm done. If Dad wants me disowned, fine. You've all spent years acting like I barely exist anyway. Last night was just the first time I finally refused to accept it. Silence filled the line heavily. When Mom finally spoke again, her voice was strained, quiet. All right, Hayley, if that's what you choose. The call disconnected abruptly, leaving me stunned, tears burning behind my eyes. I stared numbly at the phone, emotions crashing painfully inside me. Disowned, officially cut off. The reality sank in deeply, painfully. It hurt more than I'd expected, but beneath the sharp ache, something else rose quietly, resolve. Last night had been about reclaiming myself openly, and despite their cruelty, or perhaps because of it, I knew I'd made the right choice. I gathered myself slowly, wiping tears away with determination. The pain of their rejection wasn't new. It had been building quietly my whole life. But this moment was a turning point, freeing me fully from seeking their validation. Later that afternoon, Maddie stopped by, concern clear on her face. Heard what happened. How are you holding up? I shrugged, forcing a faint smile. It hurts, but honestly, maybe it's better this way. At least now I know exactly where I stand. She squeezed my hand gently, eyes full of empathy. You know you've got us. You're real family, people who actually appreciate you. I nodded gratefully, emotions welling up again. Thanks, Maddie. That evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, silence filling the empty space around me, the full weight of being officially disowned settled deeply. But strangely, it felt more liberating than devastating. For years, I'd quietly feared this very rejection. Now that it had come, harsh and final, I was surprised by the fierce strength rising in response. They'd thought disowning me would break me, force me back into submission, apologizing. Instead, it had clarified something powerful. I'd built my own success, my own worth, and that was something no family rejection could diminish. I realized clearly, sitting in that quiet room, that they'd never understood who I was, what I was capable of. And now, finally free from their judgment, I knew exactly who I intended to become. The next morning, the news of our billion-dollar acquisition dominated every major media outlet. My phone lit up constantly, congratulations flooding in from colleagues, industry peers, and even competitors acknowledging Nexitech's bold move. For once, I allowed myself to enjoy it. This moment was mine, built through sheer determination, despite every dismissal from my family. Just as I was settling into the thrill of victory, Maddie burst through my office door, breathless. "Hayley, you're never going to believe this. Check your email, right now." I opened it quickly, my pulse accelerating as I read the subject line, Tech Innovator of the Year Award, immediate response required. My heart leapt sharply as I scanned the message. It was from one of the industry's most prestigious award committees, informing me I'd been unanimously chosen as Tech Innovator of the Year. They wanted to host a televised ceremony to publicly announce the honor. The timing was incredible. Like life itself was validating everything I'd fought for. Maddie grinned, eyes sparkling with excitement. "They want you on stage tonight, a televised special event. Everyone's going to see exactly what you've built." I felt dizzy, excitement mingling with disbelief. "Tonight? Live? You're serious?" She nodded emphatically. "Absolutely serious. Hayley, this is it, your moment, no hiding, no downplaying your success." My thoughts flashed briefly to my family. Would they even bother watching? But quickly I brushed that aside. Tonight wasn't about them, it was about finally celebrating openly what I'd achieved on my terms. That evening the venue buzzed with energy. Cameras, reporters, industry leaders filled the hall, and my pulse raced steadily higher. As the ceremony began, I sat nervously backstage, rehearsing the brief acceptance speech I'd hastily prepared. Finally, they called my name. Stepping onto the stage beneath the bright lights, applause thundered around me. My throat tightened, emotions swelling unexpectedly. This validation, so public, so undeniable, hit deep, filling a void I'd carried for years. As the applause faded, the host handed me the sleek crystal award, smiling warmly. "Hayley, your journey has inspired so many. Any thoughts you'd like to share?" My heart pounded rapidly as I stepped forward, gripping the microphone. I took a deep breath, words flowing spontaneously, straight from the heart. Tonight means more than I can fully express. Not just because of this honor, but because it represents something deeply personal. My voice trembled slightly, but I steadied myself, eyes glistening with raw honesty. For years, my success felt invisible to the people I wanted most to impress, my own family. I hid my victories, minimized my dreams, because their acceptance seemed more important than my own self-worth. The room was utterly silent, hundreds of eyes fixed on me, feeling every word. But tonight, standing here, I realized something profoundly important. No one else defines our value. Real validation comes from believing in yourself, especially when others don't. I paused briefly, feeling tears sting my eyes. This award isn't just for me, it's for anyone who's felt unseen, underestimated, or dismissed. Tonight proves your worth isn't decided by someone else's limited vision. Thunderous applause erupted again, louder, heartfelt. My vision blurred slightly as I smiled gratefully, overwhelmed by the depth of support. Then, as I stepped off stage, Maddie rushed up urgently, eyes wide. "Hayley, your phone! Look now!" Dozens of messages flashed across my screen, but one stood out sharply, sending a shiver of disbelief through me. "Hayley, I'm deeply impressed. We underestimated you greatly. Perhaps it's time we talked. Dad." My breath caught sharply, disbelief mingling with shock. The message felt surreal, almost impossible. After years of cold dismissal, Dad had finally acknowledged me, but why now? Then more texts appeared quickly. Jason's cynical, biting, "Nice show, Hayley. Enjoy your moment." Mom's gentle, hopeful, "We watched, sweetheart, please come talk with us soon." Conflicting emotions flooded through me: hope, anger, confusion. They'd finally seen me, yes, but was this genuine recognition or just their reaction to my sudden public visibility? Yet beneath the confusion something else settled quietly inside me, a profound sense of peace. No matter their motivations, tonight belonged to me entirely. I'd claimed my worth, validated myself openly, proudly, undeniably. Standing backstage, clutching my award, surrounded by people who truly valued me, clarity filled me fully. I'd spent my life chasing my family's validation, but tonight, I realized clearly, I didn't need it anymore. My phone buzzed again, Dad's message glaring back at me, waiting for a reply. Slowly, deliberately, I typed a short, confident response. "Thanks, Dad, but I've already said everything I needed to say." Tonight, Hayley was finally enough for herself. The days after receiving the award were surreal. My inbox overflowed with invitations, business opportunities, and heartfelt messages from strangers who resonated deeply with my speech. It felt overwhelming, incredible, an affirmation I'd never fully allowed myself to expect. But alongside this newfound public admiration, my family's messages intensified. Dad persisted stubbornly, sending polite yet carefully worded requests to meet. Mom's gentle appeals continued, layered with hopefulness and guilt. Even Jason occasionally chimed in with bitter sarcasm masked as congratulations. Finally, after another week of this pressure, I agreed to meet them for coffee. Not for their sake, but mine. I needed closure. We met at a quiet cafe, neutral territory. I arrived early, sipping coffee nervously until I saw them approaching together. Dad stern and uncomfortable, Mom apprehensive, Jason visibly irritated. They sat stiffly opposite me, the awkward silence heavy until Dad cleared his throat carefully. "Hayley, first of all, congratulations. Your recent recognition is impressive." His tone was precise, polite, but devoid of genuine warmth. "Thank you," I replied cautiously, waiting for the inevitable qualification. He paused, uncomfortable. "Perhaps we were mistaken, slightly, about your business." "Only slightly?" I felt my temper flicker, the old hurt rising sharply again. Mom intervened gently, reaching toward me with hopeful sincerity. "Sweetheart, we're proud of you now. Isn't that enough?" I shook my head, feeling exhausted. "No, Mom, it's not enough. You were proud after seeing me on TV, after strangers validated my success publicly. What about all the years before, when I needed your support privately? When every accomplishment was mocked or ignored?" Jason snorted bitterly. "Come on, Hayley, always so dramatic. You've got your award. Can't you just accept the recognition and move on?" My voice hardened sharply, determination steadying me. "Recognition isn't the issue, respect is. For years all I wanted was for you to see me, not just publicly but privately, to see who I was, what I was capable of. You refused." Dad's jaw tightened visibly, his pride challenged openly. "Hayley, you deliberately embarrassed the family. That helicopter stunt—" "That helicopter," I interrupted sharply, "wasn't a stunt. It was business. Important business. The only embarrassment was you hiding your own daughter away like a shameful secret." Mom looked down, guilt flickering across her face. "We regret that night deeply, Hayley." "Do you?" My voice softened slightly, pain mingling with the lingering anger. "Or do you regret the public fallout? If no one else had noticed, would you still feel this way?" Silence settled heavily, answering my question perfectly. Jason leaned back, exasperated. "What exactly do you want, Hayley? An apology tour?" I met his eyes evenly, clarity finally crystallizing inside me. "No, I don't need an apology. What I needed, respect, support, genuine family, you never gave. So honestly, I don't want anything from you anymore." Dad stiffened sharply, clearly unused to being challenged this directly. "You're saying you're cutting ties completely?" "I'm saying I'm choosing myself," I responded steadily. "If cutting ties is the only way to finally have peace, then yes, that's exactly what I'm doing." Mom looked visibly shaken, eyes glistening. "Hayley, please." My heart ached sharply, the old, familiar longing for their acceptance tugging briefly. But beneath that ache, strength rose firmly. "Mom, I love you, but love without respect isn't enough." Slowly I stood, feeling unexpectedly calm. I'd faced my family head-on, confronting years of dismissive cruelty openly, honestly, and now finally I was truly free. "I wish things were different," I told them softly. "But this isn't about revenge or punishment, it's about protecting myself. I deserve more than conditional acceptance." Dad stared silently, stunned by my quiet determination. Jason looked away bitterly, Mom's eyes filled with regret, understanding dawning too late. Without another word, I turned and walked out, breathing deeply as I stepped into the sunlight outside. The pain still lingered, but beneath it surged a quiet, powerful sense of liberation. Maddie met me later, listening supportively as I shared the encounter. She smiled gently. "How do you feel?" I exhaled slowly, thoughtfully. "Lighter, sad but finally free." She squeezed my hand warmly. "You deserve peace, Hayley." And in that moment, I finally understood fully. Letting go of their validation hadn't diminished me, it had empowered me. I'd stepped beyond the shadow of their expectations into a future defined solely by my choices. The confrontation had been painful, yes. But walking away, truly, finally clearly, felt undeniably right. Tonight, as I returned home, the emptiness of my apartment no longer felt like loneliness. Instead, it held quiet strength, calm confidence. A sanctuary I'd created by choosing myself over conditional acceptance. My family's approval had cost me years of quiet humiliation. But finally, rejecting their hypocrisy felt deeply, satisfyingly, perfectly just. Tonight, Hayley wasn't defined by rejection. She was empowered by it. In the weeks following my decision to walk away from my family, something unexpected began to happen. Instead of feeling lost or isolated, I felt increasingly connected. To my team, my friends, the people who genuinely valued me. My chosen family, as Maddie liked to call them, stepped forward beautifully, offering warmth and support in ways I'd never fully realized I was missing. One Friday evening, my colleagues organized a celebration dinner at a cozy restaurant downtown to honor our recent successes. Walking into that room filled with people who genuinely cared for me felt both overwhelming and heartwarming. "Hayley," Maddie called warmly, waving from the table she'd decorated with balloons and flowers. "Come on, this night is all about you." I smiled broadly, warmth spreading through me. Around the table sat people who'd watched me build Nexitech from nothing. People who'd believed in me before the billion-dollar deals or the industry awards. Their cheers and applause as I took my seat felt authentic, supportive, nothing like the polite but distant recognition I'd experienced with my own family. Thomas raised his glass, grinning broadly. "To Hayley, the strongest, smartest, and most inspiring CEO we've ever had. You've changed all of our lives. Thank you." Laughter and applause filled the room, genuine warmth radiating. Tears pricked my eyes, gratitude overwhelming me. I'd spent my life chasing validation from the wrong people, but here in this moment acceptance came effortlessly, deeply meaningful. Later, Maddie leaned in quietly, squeezing my hand gently. "You okay?" "Better than okay," I admitted softly, smiling. "It's just, I never realized how much I needed this." She nodded knowingly. "Family isn't always blood, Hayley. Sometimes it's just about who truly sees you." Her words resonated deeply. For years I'd believed family meant loyalty at any cost, even at the expense of self-worth. Now I understood clearly. Real family uplifted you, supported you genuinely, openly, without conditions. Later that evening, as we lingered comfortably around the table, my phone buzzed softly. My stomach tightened slightly when I saw Dad's name again. His message was brief, carefully neutral. "Hayley, I respect your decision. Perhaps someday things can be different." I stared at the screen quietly, emotions swirling. It wasn't an apology, but it felt cautiously sincere. An acknowledgement, finally, of my choices. For once, I didn't feel compelled to reply. Instead, I set the phone down gently, turning back to my real family at the table. Maddie eyed me curiously. "Everything okay?" I nodded, smiling gently. "Yes. Everything's exactly as it should be." As the weeks went on, Nexitech continued to grow impressively, driven by the momentum of our recent successes. But alongside professional achievements, I prioritized building a culture of genuine support, mentorship, and inclusivity, values I desperately needed during my own early career but rarely experienced. Together, we established initiatives empowering young entrepreneurs, mentoring women in tech, supporting underserved communities. Each new project felt meaningful, personal, deeply satisfying, not just success for success's sake, but genuinely impactful. One afternoon, a handwritten letter arrived unexpectedly at my office, Mom's familiar, elegant handwriting. My chest tightened slightly as I opened it, nerves fluttering. Inside, her words were gentle, sincere. "Hayley, I'm proud of everything you've become. It hurts knowing I didn't show that when you needed it most. I can't change the past, but please know I've always loved you deeply. I hope someday you can forgive me. Until then, I'm cheering for you from afar. Love always, Mom. Tears filled my eyes as I read her words, emotion welling sharply. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, raw, a small yet significant step. Carefully, I tucked the letter away. Perhaps one day we'd rebuild something new. But for now, knowing Mom finally saw me clearly felt like enough. That night, as I walked home quietly beneath streetlights glowing softly, I reflected deeply on the idea of family. I'd grown up believing family meant obligation, approval, loyalty at any cost. But real family was deeper, built on respect, authenticity, unconditional support. The past few weeks hadn't erased years of rejection, but they'd given me clarity, strength, a new sense of belonging. I'd finally surrounded myself with people who saw me fully, celebrated me openly, loved me genuinely. I reached my apartment door, pausing thoughtfully. Tonight, walking into my quiet home, I felt comfort instead of loneliness. My family's rejection hadn't defined me, instead it had propelled me towards something profoundly better. Closing the door gently behind me, peace settled deeply inside. My biological family might always be complicated, but my chosen family was beautifully clear, undeniably genuine, warmly supportive. And tonight, Hayley knew exactly where she belonged. After everything, setting clear boundaries with my family felt necessary, not out of anger or spite, but to protect the peace I'd worked so hard to find. I realized now that true strength wasn't about revenge, it was about calmly and confidently standing in my own truth. Dad continued reaching out periodically, his messages becoming less formal, more reflective. Mom's notes arrived occasionally, gentle, careful attempts to rebuild a bridge I'd intentionally stepped away from. Even Jason tried a softer approach, awkwardly acknowledging some regret without ever fully apologizing. One morning, Maddie walked into my office, holding another letter from Dad. "Another olive branch?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. I sighed gently. "Seems like it. But honestly, Maddie, I don't think I can keep reading them. It's emotionally exhausting." She nodded sympathetically. "Maybe it's time to tell him clearly where you stand." That evening, I carefully composed a response, feeling surprisingly calm. I wrote clearly, kindly, but firmly. "Dad, I appreciate your recent messages, but right now, I need space to protect my peace. Your recognition matters, but only if it's genuine, consistent, unconditional. Until then, I wish you well, but ask that you respect my boundaries." Hitting send felt simultaneously freeing and painful, but undeniably necessary. I couldn't keep repeating old patterns of hope and disappointment. Protecting my mental and emotional health mattered more than desperately clinging to conditional acceptance. The response came quickly, short, respectful, surprisingly mature. "Understood, Hayley. I'll respect your space." I stared quietly at the screen, feeling relief mingle gently with sadness. Perhaps real growth was possible after all, but only time would tell. Meanwhile, Nexitech flourished beautifully. Our culture thrived, driven by openness, respect, and genuine care. Young, talented professionals sought us out, inspired by our success and drawn to our supportive environment. Each day, walking into the office felt energizing, meaningful, a stark contrast to the anxiety and quiet humiliation I'd experienced around my family. Then, one evening, Jason unexpectedly showed up at my apartment. I opened the door warily, surprised to see him standing awkwardly in the hallway, looking unusually hesitant. "Hayley, I won't stay long," he began cautiously. "I know you don't owe me anything, but I needed to tell you I'm sorry, truly sorry." His words, so unexpected, momentarily stunned me. "Jason," he sighed, looking down, "I realize now how wrong I've been, how cruel. I dismissed your success because it threatened everything I believed about myself. You deserved better from me." Silence hung between us, thick with years of unsaid pain, but finally hearing those words, from Jason, of all people, felt healing in a way I'd never anticipated. "Thank you," I said softly, meeting his eyes steadily. "I appreciate you saying that." He nodded awkwardly, relief briefly crossing his face. "I don't expect forgiveness, but maybe one day we could try again, on different terms." I considered quietly, emotions swirling. "Maybe, but it has to be built on respect, Jason, genuine respect." He nodded, understanding clearly. "I know." After he left, the apartment felt heavy with emotion. His apology wasn't perfect, but it was real, honest. Perhaps one day our relationship could heal, but for now, boundaries felt essential to protect the peaceful life I'd created. That night, lying in bed, I reflected deeply on boundaries, how painful yet necessary they sometimes were. I'd once feared losing my family's approval more than anything. Now, clearly understanding my worth, I'd willingly chosen distance over conditional acceptance. Maddie listened supportively the next morning, smiling gently as I shared. Boundaries aren't about punishment, Hayley, they're about respect. You're finally respecting yourself. I nodded thoughtfully. It feels good, Maddie, hard but right. She squeezed my hand reassuringly. That's strength. In the weeks that followed, a quiet peace settled deeply inside me. My family's attempts at reconciliation slowed, respecting the space I'd asked for. Nexitech continued thriving, our positive impact spreading visibly in communities we supported. My chosen family, colleagues and friends who genuinely valued me provided unwavering love and strength. One quiet afternoon, Maddie found me gazing thoughtfully out my office window. Everything okay? I smiled softly, genuinely. Yes. It's just, I finally feel like I'm exactly where I belong. She nodded warmly. You've built something incredible, Hayley, not just the company but yourself. Her words resonated deeply. My true success wasn't measured in billion-dollar deals or public awards. It was defined by respecting myself, setting clear boundaries, and embracing genuine relationships based on respect, support, and authenticity. That evening, returning to my peaceful apartment, I felt deeply content. My life wasn't perfect. No one's was. But the boundaries I'd established allowed genuine strength, dignity, and quiet happiness to flourish beautifully. The fortress I'd built wasn't meant to isolate. It was meant to protect the peace and dignity I'd fought fiercely to reclaim. Tonight, Hayley finally felt safe, powerful, and perfectly at peace with who she'd become. With the boundaries finally in place, my focus shifted fully toward creating something lasting and meaningful from my success. Something entirely mine, shaped not by family expectations but by my values and vision. I'd spent so long chasing external validation. Now it felt powerfully freeing to direct my energy toward making a genuine difference. Nexitech flourished beautifully, our teams empowered, passionate, and collaborative. Our charitable initiatives expanded, supporting underserved schools, funding STEM scholarships, and mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs, especially young women whose journeys mirrored my own. Each new program felt deeply personal, as though I were quietly reaching back in time to help younger versions of myself find the encouragement I'd never had. One evening, Maddie and I hosted an event celebrating our scholarship recipients. Standing at the podium, I smiled warmly at the talented, hopeful faces looking back at me. Tonight isn't just about financial support, I began gently. It's about recognizing your value clearly, loudly, publicly. Never let anyone convince you that your dreams are insignificant. Your vision matters deeply, and we're here to ensure you never forget that. Applause erupted warmly, filling me with profound pride. Not pride in myself, but pride in the young people bravely pursuing their passions despite adversity. It felt incredibly satisfying to offer the kind of genuine support I'd once desperately needed. After the speeches, a young woman named Clara approached shyly, eyes wide with gratitude. Hayley, your story inspired me deeply. My family thinks tech is silly, but now, thanks to the scholarship, I know I can pursue my dream. Emotion tightened my throat. You absolutely can, Clara. Your vision is powerful, never doubt that. Watching her smile, seeing hope blossom visibly, felt deeply rewarding. This was legacy. Real legacy, not wealth or titles, but helping others see their potential clearly and fearlessly. Later that evening, Maddie pulled me aside gently. Hayley, there's someone waiting outside, your mom. She's been quietly watching the whole event. My pulse quickened slightly, nerves fluttering. Mom, here? She nodded gently. She asked if you'd talk briefly. Taking a steadying breath, I stepped outside, heart pounding softly. Mom stood quietly beneath the streetlights, her expression hesitant, hopeful. We stared silently at each other for a long moment, emotions swirling. Finally, she spoke softly, her voice trembling slightly. Hayley, watching you tonight, I've never felt prouder. You're doing something incredible. Her sincere praise felt unfamiliar yet deeply meaningful. Thank you, Mom. She sighed gently. I wish I'd supported you sooner. I was weak, Hayley. Too afraid of disappointing your father, too afraid of challenging our family dynamics. I let you down deeply. Her honesty surprised me, touched me profoundly. Mom, hearing you say that, it matters. She reached out gently, eyes glistening with quiet tears. Maybe we can rebuild something new, not because we have to, but because we choose to. Something real, based on genuine respect. I nodded slowly, thoughtfully. I'd like that. Walking home later, my emotions felt beautifully complicated. Hopeful, thoughtful, deeply grateful. Perhaps not every bridge needed rebuilding, but maybe some were worth exploring gently, carefully. Over the next months, Mom and I slowly rebuilt our relationship. Not perfectly, but authentically. Conversations became real, honest, meaningful. We spoke openly about past hurt, forgiveness, and the futures we both genuinely wanted. It wasn't instant reconciliation, but it was careful, cautious, deeply sincere. One evening, at another scholarship event, Mom joined me proudly, smiling warmly at the students receiving their awards. "Hayley," she whispered gently, "I finally see why this means everything to you. You're creating the kind of support I never had the courage to give." Her words resonated deeply, filling me with quiet gratitude. "Thanks, Mom. It means a lot." That night, reflecting quietly at home, I realized clearly that reclaiming my legacy hadn't just been about proving myself to family. It had been about creating meaning beyond their approval entirely. My success wasn't measured by family validation anymore. It was defined by the positive impact I could have, the genuine support I could offer, the community I could build. Maddie stopped by later, smiling knowingly as I shared these thoughts. "Hayley, you've transformed your struggle into something beautiful." I nodded softly, emotion welling deeply. "This is legacy, Maddie. Not money or awards, but genuinely helping people believe in themselves." She squeezed my hand warmly. "You're finally defining success on your own terms." That realization settled profoundly within me. My journey hadn't simply been about overcoming rejection. It had become about creating purpose, meaning, genuine value. I'd spent years trying to prove myself to people who didn't truly see me, but now finally, clearly, I'd built something real, something lasting, meaningful, entirely mine. That night, as peace filled my quiet home, I understood fully that my legacy was no longer tied to family approval or conditional acceptance. It was defined solely by the difference I could make, the genuine support I offered, the dreams I helped nurture. Tonight, Hayley had finally reclaimed her legacy completely, and beautifully on her own terms. In the months after reclaiming my legacy, life began settling gently into a peaceful rhythm I'd never fully imagined. Nexitech continued thriving, not just financially but culturally. The initiatives we'd established had a visible, lasting impact. Each day brought new stories, young entrepreneurs succeeding, students inspired, people genuinely empowered by the paths we'd created. My relationship with Mom quietly evolved into something genuine and supportive. We spoke regularly, not just about surface-level pleasantries, but about real feelings, honest conversations we'd long avoided. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentic, healing, deeply meaningful. Jason and Dad remained respectfully distant. I understood clearly that some bridges were better left untouched, at least for now. Setting boundaries had allowed me to protect my peace and invest fully in relationships rooted in respect and authenticity. One quiet evening, reflecting softly at home, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the journey, the struggles, even the pain I'd endured. Each moment had shaped me, clarified my purpose, strengthened my resolve. I'd spent years defining my worth by family acceptance, but finally, clearly, I realized my true worth came entirely from within. My phone buzzed gently, a message from Maddie lighting the screen. "Hayley, just wanted to say I'm so proud of you. You've inspired all of us to believe fully in our dreams." I smiled softly, warmth spreading deeply through me. I'd built something meaningful, not just in business but in my life. Genuine relationships, real purpose, quiet peace. My journey hadn't just been about overcoming rejection, it had become about discovering and fully embracing my own value. As I looked around my peaceful home, emotions swelled gently. I'd finally stopped chasing validation from people who never truly saw me, and instead found something profoundly more satisfying, genuine self-validation. Stepping onto my balcony, the cool night air filled me quietly. The city light sparkled gently, calm and reassuring. For the first time, fully, I felt at peace, not defined by someone else's expectations, but by my own understanding of who I was, what I'd accomplished, and what truly mattered. Looking back, I recognized clearly that my family's rejection had never diminished my worth. It had simply clarified it, strengthened me profoundly. Now finally, I stood firmly in the knowledge that no one's approval could ever define or diminish my value. Instead, my value was rooted deeply in my integrity, compassion, resilience, the quiet strength I'd built carefully, intentionally. Real success wasn't about public applause or billion-dollar deals. It was about living authentically, respecting myself, uplifting others genuinely, clearly, honestly. Tonight, standing beneath the gentle stars, I whispered softly into the peaceful quiet, "Thank you for everything." It wasn't directed at my family, or even my chosen family. It was gratitude toward myself, toward the journey, toward finally seeing clearly who I'd become. My journey had shown me that true peace wasn't about revenge or validation from others. It was about fully accepting and celebrating myself exactly as I was. Before I end my story, let me ask you something important. Have you ever felt overlooked or undervalued by the people you thought mattered most? Have you ever discovered your true worth by letting go of their expectations? If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay, more than okay, to define success on their own terms. Because real strength doesn't come from proving others wrong. It comes from fully, unapologetically believing in yourself. Tonight, Hayley finally, clearly, peacefully, belonged completely to herself, and that was worth more than any validation someone else could ever provide.